But I did a lot of traveling with Ralph. Like I said, every year we went to Canada.
Yeah.
We went hunting in Canada for about a month at a time. Albuquerque, New Mexico. We've hunted out in the Channel Islands here.
Okay.
And so we vacationed to Hong Kong, China, years ago.
That's very cool. How was that?
Great experiences. Without him, I would never had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like he gave you a lot of experiences.
Yeah.
For the long time that you guys knew each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it was good. I appreciate it, and it's a great memories.
Yeah. It also sounds like he taught you a lot.
Yeah, I actually did. Yeah.
What are some of the most important things you think he taught you?
How to run a business and how to be successful and don't give up.
Yeah.
Work ethics and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Is there anything else? Anything, or things ways that you think he had an impact on, the person that you became?
Mainly my work ethic is what impacts me the most.
Okay.
Like I said, that's what we basically just did is work.
Yeah. This is yours, right? No, next one. Especially because when we were first going into the Batteries Intervention Program, I did an interview with Dave. Really wanted to have a conversation with Dave before we decided on our first meeting. And one of the questions that I asked him was, are there any broad similarities between the guys there? And to my surprise, he said no. I don't know what I was expecting to hear, but I think that one of the things that is difficult and that makes life more challenging for people trying to rehabilitate is that sort of social stigma around that late stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, and I was definitely aware of that. Even going into the process, aware of that, there was some sort of characteristic I was expecting to be consistent, but there really wasn't. And he said that people come from all walks of life.
Yeah. Different situations.
Is the park?
The park's one more.
One more. All right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate over the years that, say, the different levels and intensities of the abuse, from just a simple grabbing somebody to the extreme of OJ killing, assumably killing Nicole and her friend.
Not putting a verdict on that.
Right.
This is not a political documentary.
Mystery. Did he or did he not kill her?
Let's abandon this idea. Let's do that documentary instead.
Oh man.
Come to Vegas with me. We'll see him.
When are you going to Vegas?
I'm gonna try to go tonight.
Oh, what are you doing tonight?
I want to go see Betty, Ralph's wife. She's in a nursing home.
Okay.
So it's been about a month since I've been to see her. So I went last week and want to get out every week at least. She's getting frail.
Yeah.
Precious time.
Yeah. Are you staying there tonight, or are you going back?
I'm up back tomorrow night. I'll come. If I go tonight, I'll stay at the Pal Station and visit her tomorrow. Go to Ottawa auction, visit other friends, business-wise there. Try to make the trip worthwhile.
Yeah.
So cover my expenses.
You mind driving us back?
No.
Okay, thank you. Oh, you mean you're hoping for some sort of business opportunity type thing?
Yeah, usually when I go up, I'll try to transport. I'll tow a car up. I'll try to tow one back.
Are you doing that today?
I'm trying to. That's something that came up car-wise. So I'm trying to take something up. Okay. It pays for my fuel. Pays for my time. It's really expensive. He's really soft-spoken, somewhat alert. It all depends on what time you catch her. Sometimes in the morning is the best time to speak with her. She's more alert.
Yeah.
I think after they take the medications, she's a little more out of it.
Yeah.
I made a payment on Tuesday, the day before it was due. And they called me yesterday saying I didn't make a payment, so they tacked on another $300 fine. So I need to go address that.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get addressed today. They close at 4. So I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, I understand.
You miss one thing, you're in trouble.
Is this a court fine, or is this the Batteries Intervention Program?
It's actually, I think I'm paying on a ticket.
A ticket?
Seatbelt ticket. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Okay.
So they just combined my intervention fine, like 125 with my moving violation ticket of the seatbelt ticket. So,
Okay.
so one on a payment program, you can't miss. Otherwise they violate you or tack on a fine, which they told me they were going to yesterday.
Yeah.
So I get that straightened out. So I got my receipt that they gave me.
Okay.
But I don't think he processed the credit card.
Yeah.
So just keeping everybody in check.
Yeah. You definitely are. So, earlier I asked you why you wanted to be in this documentary. You mentioned, like, maybe once or twice, a couple times that your wife and son are interested. What do you think their motivations are for if they do decide this is what they want to do?
I haven't got an answer from them yet if they want to do it or not.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I want to give it them tonight or tomorrow.
Sure.
I have a better answer for you.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't mean to push you. That's totally fine.
No, I think just why they want to do it is probably to help me.
Yeah.
You can become aware of my problems and my anger, and
Sure.
so I can deal with it.
Yeah.
Be a better husband and a better father.
Okay.
It affects everybody, the way I act, the kids, the family.
How does it affect you?
It doesn't really. That's somehow I goes, yeah, no feelings. So I need
What do you
to
mean?
find my true feelings.
Yeah.
I just been through a lot, and I just
Yeah.
gotten numb over the years, I guess.
Yeah. But it seems like you're a lot better about it now, because if I had been introduced to you, or if you hadn't told me prior that you were kind of a stuffer, that's not something that I would have guessed.
Yeah.
I've always
Avoid the confrontation.
Why do you think you stuff things you're supposed to be like and not at all feel like?
Well, I definitely stuff things business-wise and stuff. I just don't like confrontation.
Why do you think that is?
I would imagine I grew up on my own, so I've always been raised myself, and
Yeah.
didn't learn how to communicate properly or communicate to that level.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Okay. Cool. This is our car. We'll swap our batteries real quick. Get that?
Yeah.
So, we want to, even if you have some advice about this, we want to do whatever it is we can to make this seem a little bit less scary, because it was weird. Baldwin actually asked this question in class when we met him the first time. He asked if we were going to go pull up his court reports or his police records, and it was, and that made me sad, because it was unfortunate that his first reaction was to think about what we were doing in that
the negative side of it.
Yeah.
Right. You guys, Google Gene Simmons. You know who he is, right?
The KISS guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Google Gene Simmons, marriage boot camp.
Okay.
So him and Shannon Tweed were dating for so long. They weren't married.
Mm-hmm.
They just got recently married after they'd done the marriage boot camp that we've been through.
Oh, that's
Wow,
cool.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so one for marriage boot camp, but they split off. And you saw that they had a reality show. I think it might have been a year or two episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It was marriage boot camp.
Okay.
And then they went marriage boot camp, Hollywood movie star, it felt bad because it took it away from the public.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then the founders, one of the founders, Ron, had passed away, so his wife Tina Tonkin ran with it and called it 3 R's: relationship, rehabilitate. So the 3 R's. But look at the Gene Simmons episodes, and that's basically what we went through. So
really?
You'll see it's pretty intense.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, thank you. I definitely will.
Then you relate what was gone to. And I feel some of these boys need to go through that kind of camp.
Yeah.
Even as they have it now, they opened it up as individuals rather than just couples. It was just couples boot camp. Now they have it individuals. So that helps out.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so look at that.
We definitely will. Thank you.
Very cool.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day. It was
All
good to
right.
talk to
so
you.
You as well. Nice to meet you. We'll see you guys next week.
All right,
Yeah.
See you next week.
Okay, thanks.
Something for me when the two of us describe you as you're presenting as being angry, and your response is, no, I'm not. I'm not an angry person. And remember how, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, we talked about that sometimes your perception of what's going on internally is different than how everybody else in the room is perceiving it.
Sure.
So I want you to maybe consider that. Maybe your strong emotions are happening, and maybe they're so close to you that you're not being able to distinguish when I'm feeling really passionate about something or when I'm really pissed at something.
Right.
But again, it's that you have to slow down and you have to really listen to what's going on inside you in order for you to be able to distinguish between the two.
Right. And that's why this is to many different ways, but you know.
Right. Now there's an underlying thing that I want to start talking about with you because I don't think we've been
Underlined?
Underlying?
Yeah.
No, not underlying.
Oh.
Underlying.
Okay.
Like underneath.
Okay.
Underneath the surface.
Oh, yeah.
And that is it difficult for you when people ask you to change?
Yeah.
Any idea why?
I can be a bit stubborn. You know, and in my opinion, only my opinion, I do a lot of things better than a lot of different people. And if I'm doing it better than you and you're telling me how to do it, it's difficult for me to be perceptive to.
Okay.
And it goes along with like what Mark was doing, you know what I mean? It's hard to tell him what to do. You can't tell him what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's supposed to be telling you what to do.
Right.
And he knows and he's got the experience to tell you what to do.
Okay.
So sometimes I put myself off as that way, and it's something I struggle with, you know what I mean? Something I've gotten into a lot of arguments over, and that's exactly what we're working on in these weeks.
So this is where I'm going to need you guys' assistance. So the difference that Paul's describing is, how do I tell if it's a credibility issue in the outside information versus if it's a control need for me? Does that make sense? So if I'm being asked to change my behavior and I don't want to, is it about my not wanting to give up control to you, who's the person asking me to change, or is it about how should you ask me to change when you're behaving just as badly? How do we tell the difference? Say more.
If you have a feeling that you're losing control, then it's about control. And if it's a credibility issue, then you have a doubt.
Okay.
So there's a difference between having a doubt and having a loss of control feeling.
Who's got a thought about what Sam is saying? Pay attention to your feelings. I think he's right, but I want to come even steps further. And I was actually asking you guys a trick question. So when somebody asks you to change your behavior, does it matter who's asking? It doesn't. Because the next thing that you need to do is ask yourself, do I need to change this behavior? It doesn't matter if you don't have any credibility, if I really do need to change that behavior. If this behavior that I'm doing, that I'm being asked to change, has caused me interpersonal conflict in my relationship, or if it's caused me consequences, either at home, outside the home, at work, on the freeway, wherever, why does it matter if you are having behavior problems too? If I need to change this behavior? So again, I think that's where the control issue comes in, where we want to make it about all of this out here so that we don't have to look in at the behavior that we're being asked to change. Paul, any thoughts about that?
That's like my biggest struggle.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I'm ready for
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You go.
Are you ready for a hard question?
Sure.
What does it take from you if you change your behavior? What do you lose? Do you lose self-control? If somebody asks you to change a negative behavior and you do, are you now not in control of yourself?
No, you're in control of yourself, but you lose nothing.
Do you
lose nothing? You have the opportunity to analyze what you need to change. If somebody's telling you need to change, instead of being stubborn about, well, they don't need it, I'm doing it right, I don't need to do this, or I don't need to listen to you because you don't know what you're doing. Take that opportunity. I think that's what I see, is take that opportunity to analyze why somebody's asking you that.
Right.
There's got to be some. So.
But then I want to bring back what Sam said, and this is where it's important for you to pay attention to your feelings, because sometimes we might believe that if I do make this change, I'm going to feel less worthy, or maybe I'm going to feel embarrassed, or sometimes maybe even guilty or ashamed. Does that make sense? And then sometimes that's what causes us to, I'm not going to do that, because then I have to have these feelings. And that's kind of the purpose of what we're talking about, and using some of these skills to calm down some of these feelings, so then we can make a good decision. So when one of us asks you to change your behavior, these are the things that I need you to start doing. I want you to slow down and listen to yourself. Catch the conflict of, am I wanting to be resistive because you guys don't tell me what to do? Am I going to lose something if I change this behavior? And what am I going to gain if I change this behavior?
No, I mean, I am for change. You see me working on these things. So the few things that I just heard, when people say, "Oh yeah, in the last few weeks you have changed," things like that, I really like hearing that. It means that I'm doing something. You know what I mean? I'm growing. I'm excelling in something. And anytime I'm excelling in something, that feels great. You know what I mean? So I am open to change. It's just you're right. I need to slow down and accept what needs to be changed and what I can do to change it. And that's what I'm working on.
Why do you think it feels good when somebody in the room tells you, hey, you've been doing a good job the last couple of weeks. You've been making some good changes. Why does that feel nice?
That shows effort and hard work paying off.
In them or you?
In me.
And why does it take them to point that out?
It doesn't.
Do you do that for yourself?
No, I don't. I mean, sometimes I do, but like to have somebody else realize that it is change, you have, it's recognition, I guess. It does feel good.
Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a trick question for some of the older guys. Tony, I think, was here. I'm not sure Mike, but definitely Brad. So it might be just the two of you guys that were left. When is the only time that I've given you permission to seek validation from somebody else? This is probably 9-10 months ago.
I remember the question, but I don't remember the answer.
Brad, do you remember? But let's think about it. When is the only time when you are allowed to ask other people for validation? There's one time.
Well, when you want their opinion. When would that be validated?
You're not sure of your own cognitive ability.
Was this the
I couldn't hear you. Say it one
When
more
you're
time.
not sure of your own cognitive ability or function? I don't know. That's very.
Are you ever not sure of that?
If someone tells me, hey, you're hallucinating, I might be like, well, do you see that? And that's validation.
What?
Was this the same time we were kind of talking about Tony and his dad? And he was
No,
kind of
way
seeking
before.
validation?
This was almost maybe a year ago. Close to when you guys first started. So I'll just tell you. So the answer is, the only time you are allowed to seek validation from somebody else is after you have done it yourself. Paul, what do you think about that?
I think that's when it hits home and probably makes the most sense.
Which way? When you do it yourself?
When
or
I
when
do
other
it
people?
myself and then someone else sees that I'm also made that improvement, or
So does that then imply that there's some doubt?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you validate yourself and then you doubt, what do you need to do again? What do you need to do then? I just hinted it.
What?
You do it again.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Reevaluate yourself.
Sorry about that. I misspoke.
You validate it again.
You do it again.
Yeah.
Broken record. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Todd, any thoughts about that lesson? You must validate yourself before you can get validation from someone.
Makes sense to me. Yeah.
Any kind of areas where that might be helpful for you?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now. I'm sure there are areas
That would be, I'll have to think about that.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts for Paul about us bringing up?
I just have one question. Like, you have to be honest with yourself and know your character defects and work on it. If you work on it honestly, I think you'll be a better person every day. Or you'll grow, keep on growing. But you have to be honest with yourself first.
Do you know what character defects are?
I
Have you
don't
ever heard
know.
that phrase
I don't
before?
have any.
This is the comedy portion of the group. Anybody not know that phrase?
What was the phrase?
Character defects. It's a 12-step phrase. Anybody want to explain that? Who knows what that is? Character defect. Bound, you want to say?
Fearless moral inventory of
What?
Fearless moral inventory of yourself. Basically, whatever wrong you do, you write it down on a piece of paper. Then you ask for forgiveness. But the first step is being honest and write down your own character defects.
Right, but what is a character defect?
Maybe I'm not understanding.
So you're talking about the 4-step and the 12-step program. So that's where you write down all of the things about you that you need to change. That's what a character defect is. When something about yourself that you need to change. So for example, if I have a temper, that's one of my character defects.
Yes.
Or if I'm quick to judge, that's something that I want to work on changing.
Yes.
So it sounds like what Bowen is suggesting is maybe you should take a look at yourself and identify what are some of the things about yourself that you do need to change. Take an inventory.
Yep. Thank you. Give you all that stuff. Thank you.
I just have a little comment about Paul. I mean, work-wise, I mean, whatever you're doing, maybe it's good for you. Maybe there's a distinguish, you know, because some of the stuff I use towards work, employees, and customers as well, and then there's other stuff, just family and friends I distinguish, you know, because sometimes you can't always apply to everything. That's how I feel. So I mean, I remember a couple weeks ago, I mean, you're great at your job, you know, you do certain things, it's how you roll and whatnot, and I think, I personally think it's okay if that's working for you work-wise, but if you want to change like the relationship aspect of whoever you're dating and your kids or whatnot, then I think it's better evaluate it that way, take it one step at a time. I feel you don't have to involve your whole world, you know what I mean? So that's my take on it. So
Unless you've not really taken a look at how it's affecting you in those other worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes the more that we increase our self-awareness in our romantic relationships, we start to see, oh, you know, I'm doing that with my neighbor. Oh, I'm doing that with my friend, or I'm doing this with my aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And it might help increase your awareness of how you are actually interacting. And what I'd like for you guys to see these tools as, these are not just for romantic relationships. These tools that I'm teaching you about how to have a conflict, how to handle conflict, or how to handle an emotion can be used anywhere and in any kind of relationship, not just your primary romantic relationship. Any thoughts?
Stepping back a little bit on the character defects, can that cross over into moralities?
Well, it depends on if you want to evaluate that and see if there's something that you want to start changing. Sometimes in our culture we do that. We may have been raised to view a certain issue in a certain way, and as we get older and times change, we need to take a look at that and see if the way we were raised looking at that particular issue is still working for us.
So how would you define character defect versus morality or morals?
So let's say that I'm going to pick on Stephen. So let's say Stephen was raised in the 40s, 1940s, and he was raised in the Midwest, and he was raised to view women as objects, that they should not be speaking, they should not be out of the house, that they should not have opinions. And maybe in the 40s, that kind of morality or view towards another group of people might have been more normal back then. But now that we're in a new decade, a new century, times have changed. We've evolved, we're evolving as a society. Maybe now it's time for Stephen to reevaluate that moral.
Okay, so growing up in a time period, you could have a certain set of morals and spiritual and whatever, the way you were grown, raised in your environment. So with time marching on, that actually can become a character defect with the time frame of society.
Even if you don't change or adapt.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. Good point. And many times people do that with their spiritual beliefs. They might have been raised with one particular religious group in their childhood, and as they get older, they may start to question that, and they may find, oh, I kind of like this group over here, and I'm going to go check that out. Or I'm going to go check this one out. Oh, I'm going to go check this one out. And then you kind of pick and, oh, I like this part of this one, I like this part of this one, and I like this part of this one. But I don't like that part of that one. So I'm not going to incorporate that. That's part of why I want you guys to, one, you have to be more aware of what's going on in your head, how you're thinking about things, what beliefs that you choose to behave by, and then reevaluate. Is the way I'm thinking causing me to do a behavior that's causing me consequences that I don't want? I need to think about that. I need to figure out, why am I doing that? And what's a better way to get that done so that I don't get those consequences? That's where the listening to yourself, and this is where you're going to catch a lot of those thoughts. Any thoughts? You gotta listen.
Right.
And change.
And change. In the areas that you need to.
You know, just kind of bringing it home for you and to bring it up, I would absolutely say that, you know, I think it's indicative that we think that you're no longer angry. I know you felt like you weren't angry and you were just expressing your emotions. And maybe that may be true for you. How you are perceived by other people dictates exactly what your relationships are all about. Perceiving other people. And I think when you take that out of here and you can express yourself now passionately in a way that doesn't come off to other people as angry, you may get different responses, and that may take your relationships in a whole new direction. Just a thought.
Any thoughts about what he said?
Yeah, I can kind of sugarcoat my anger.
I didn't say you're sugarcoating anger.
Well, no, that's honestly what I'm doing. I keep denying it, and, I know I'm mad, pissed off, I'm hurt, and I'm dealing with it, I'm trying to deal with it the best I can,
And then maybe by taking a look more about that, you might find, and again, I don't know, but you might find that all of this anger and hurt is not just about Caroline. Maybe some of this stuff is about your mom. Maybe some of this stuff is about your dad. Maybe some of this stuff is from previous relationships. But if you keep holding it in to the point where it blows out, I don't know that you're going to get anywhere. And you're going to keep getting the same consequences over and over and over.
Yeah.
And by us slowing you down and kind of helping you talk about uncomfortable things, we might be able to heal some of these wounds so that you don't have to keep making these same mistakes again.
Right.
And it's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to be nice. It might hurt. You might go kicking and screaming, but I think if you kind of look around the room and some other guys who have done some of these similar things too, in the end, I think you might benefit from it.
I am.
Not only for yourself, but for Jack.
I can see what I'm working on and what I'm writing about besides just for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Stuff that I'm taking time to think about and process from class,
Right.
Like this rubber band you told me to wear last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been working on that all week.
Good.
Been helping.
Good. So, before we get into the chapter, I wanted to give you some time because I haven't seen you in a while. And are you okay? What's going on with you? Are you struggling?
Yeah, well, I was laid off after 15 years with the same engineering company.
Mm-hmm.
I got acquired and they let 12 out of 15 of us go. This was a while ago. So I'm struggling financially trying to pay for all this stuff. And also, because of her drinking. My mom is now in a rehabilitation center, physical. She had her
Nursing home?
femur replaced. She has a synthetic femur.
Oh.
She didn't do her rehab very good. She beat bone cancer.
Oh.
So she tends to drink at night, every night, and that's when she falls. She has one of those pendants, life alerts pendants.
Right.
So she keeps pressing that, and the paramedics finally took her last time. I had just drove up to the house as they were leaving. So now she's stuck in kind of a rehabilitation hospital setting.
Like a nursing home?
Yeah. And then she called me today saying, come get me. I don't want to be here. I'm not leaving my house. I don't care if I sleep on the floor. She can't get back up, you know. It's just like that commercial. So that's kind of a tough time right now for me. I'm going to have to figure out what to do. I've been staying there a lot, and she's just too stubborn. She won't go to a retirement home, or she had one girl who was her housekeeper move in upstairs because she doesn't do the stairs anymore, and she only lasted 2 weeks because of the drinking at night thing. So yep, that's what I'm doing.
What feelings are coming up for you watching your mom go through this?
Well, I'm just kind of disappointed in her because I know, you know, she wasn't always like this. She's very sedentary now. She just kind of gets up, sits in her recliner, watches TV all day, and that's it. I have to do her shopping for her and everything. You know, I don't mind helping her, but watching her just not give a damn about anything that's the hard part. So now I'm looking at having to hire somebody I don't know to move into the house full time, pretty much, or someone to come every single night. I can't always be there for her.
So come back to my question. What feelings are coming up for you?
Well, I'm disappointed, angry with her choices.
To be stubborn or to drink or?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of disappointed in myself too, because I do her grocery shopping. You know, she'll say, hey, get me some vodka and some chicken and this and that. So I'm kind of enabling her, but I know she'll just find someone else to do it if I don't.
So does that give you permission to do it?
No.
If you think she's going to find someone else?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, now we're looking at somebody we don't know moving in to help her out. She won't change. She's been this way since I was 5 years old. So.
Are you telling me stubbornness runs in your family?
Yeah. That's for sure.
Is this a trigger for you drinking?
No.
No, not watching her do this?
Pardon me?
Watching her self-destruct and make
No,
this
if anything, it helps me because I see how she changes, you know, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's
Right.
a whole different person. So,
It's good perspective.
yeah,
Right.
that's for sure.
Are you having any sadness about watching your mom deteriorate?
Yeah, it's a little saddening. She's okay mentally, you know, she's funny and bright and stuff, except when the nighttime rolls around. So, yeah, there's some sadness there. I didn't even want to pick her up. She called me today right before class. She said, get me out of here. So I told her she had to stay one more night and we're going to have to figure out what to do. I mean, she could taxi out of there if she wanted to, but she's going to wait for me. So yeah, we're kind of in the middle of that right now. Lots of different things going on. I'm considering calling some members of our family, try to get them involved.
Are you
To
getting
help
any medical support
help her make a choice.
from the medical people, the doctors?
She's okay. She physically can't walk, and it seems to be at night.
But are they giving you guidance about how to help all that stuff?
Yeah, we have tools in the house. Like I said, she has those buttons. I've got phones everywhere.
Okay.
She has a neighbor she can call, but she can't just keep calling these people. So tomorrow I'll know more. Got a list of providers from the hospital where it's in-home care. So we're going to go through that and see what the options are.
Okay. Who's got thoughts or questions for Todd about his emotional struggle?
How was court?
Court went fine.
When was that, Tuesday?
That was today.
So what happened?
Well, I turned in my progress report.
We didn't go over his progress report, did we?
Was that last week? No,
He was
you
not
weren't
here.
here last week.
Yeah.
No, we have not. We need to do that. Do you have a copy of it or?
You faxed it to me. I think that I gave it to the
How are we
court.
doing on time? I'm not paying attention.
7:40.
What week are you on?
12, 18, I don't know.
13. I went quick for you.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like it.
We have about
Close.
10 minutes, yeah. So we have time to do that, if you have it on you. If not, I can bring a copy of it next week. You don't have, did you keep a
No.
copy for yourself?
No.
Did
They
you
didn't
have
give me
any-
mine back either.
Oh, we're supposed to do yours tonight as well?
We did that already.
I did it.
Oh, we did yours?
And I went to court, but they didn't give me my copy back.
Yeah, they didn't hand mine back either.
Wasn't there somebody I talked to last week that they were gonna bring a copy of their progress report tonight?
I saw them give some other people's
But
back.
didn't we do
though.
yours? Yeah. Okay. I thought it was somebody I handed last week at the end of group.
No, the week before that.
Week
you
before.
had somebody and then I used your fax machine to photocopy it.
Did you?
I know, I had done mine
Yeah.
a while
This is my
before.
13th week. I need to start writing an essay. I believe.
No, you're on 11.
Oh,
Tonight's
Oh,
11.
okay.
It's due on 13. Did you have any thoughts about your progress report?
No, it was pretty much on par with what I thought it would be.
Okay.
I got mostly 4s. I got 5. And the gist of it that I got was got a slow start here, but I'm starting to progress. So.
Okay.
And last week I was at the Costa Mesa one. So Janine had me. They did the subject matter was surviving the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So she had me read about 8 pages of stuff, so I could participate with that class. So
Good.
that was different. That was nice.
We got that coming up in here in a couple of weeks. Do you want to ask anything else? Anybody else have any thoughts or questions for Todd about his emotional struggle?
I don't know what to ask about it, to be honest.
You seem distressed.
Well, yeah, Brad knows my mom, so he knows I've been going through this for quite a long time now. She's always falling down. I'm gonna have to get someone to help.
That's a very
Yeah.
difficult scenario. Todd and I have known each other for a long time, and I know that situation.
Mom.
Yeah. Some very difficult decisions are gonna have to be made.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
hard to watch your
I need
parent.
help.
Absolutely.
Where-
And I think she's at the point in her life, I don't think an at-home assistance is really the place to be. And this is outside looking in. But again, some difficult decisions are gonna have to be made.
Yeah.
And I don't, if I had to put myself in that situation, I don't know what I would do either. And I know it's gotta be taxing on you, Todd, and with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So-
Yeah, you haven't seen her after 6 o'clock. You're usually.
I
Anytime.
think there was once or twice I saw maybe the beginning of that, and I
Okay.
can only imagine she's falling and she's
Yeah.
incapacitated,
Right.
and she has to have somebody there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not gonna get any better. I don't know what I would do if it were my mom. I don't know. That's a real difficult
Right.
environment, and I only hope the best can come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe other family members are the right way to go. I just don't know, because she's by herself.
Well, and again, this is kind of why I was glad that Tony brought up his question, that this is a perfect example of, and even though I'm teaching you tools about anger and violent behavior, use these same tools to help you
Yeah.
with this other emotional
Mhm.
stress and the fear about watching your mom, or the sadness or the disappointment. All of these same tools will be helpful for that issue as well.
Mhm.
And then you'll be able to make some good decisions, rather than being under the weight of all of this stress and overwhelmed and anxiety and grief.
And she's gonna be stubborn and drag her feet the whole way. I mean, look, she's calling you now to pick her up because she doesn't want to be there.
Well, she doesn't want to be there. Like, do you and your mom have a relationship where you can go through the problem solving tool with her? You know,
Pardon?
hey, do you know the problem solving tool that
Yeah.
we?
Okay.
Do you and your mom have a relationship where you can go through that with her and say, hey, we have a problem. Your drinking is causing you not to be able to stay at home, and you know, everybody wants you to, you know, have what you want. You want to stay home, so.
Let's even go a step backwards. And do you have a healthy relationship with your mom
Yes, except when the evil mom comes out at about
when she's drinking?
7:45 or 8.
Dr. Eggle and Mr. Hyde.
Was she
you know,
sundowning
different-
or is
two
this
personalities?
She drinks every night.
So this is when after the drinking goes. Can you
Yeah.
have a healthy relationship with
She's
somebody?
never fallen during the day, put it that way.
Can you have a healthy relationship with somebody who's intoxicated?
No, I wouldn't talk to her
Right.
at that time of night.
I mean, so maybe you know, go during the day, and you know, try and work through the problem-solving steps, and take each one of those things, and just say, hey, mom, you know, I want you to be okay at home, and we all care about you, and we don't want you to be rushed off to this hospital because it's not a setting you want to be in. I want you to feel comfortable, but your drinking is causing you to not be in this thing. Let's, you know, the exact steps: define the problem with your mom. You know, try and get her understanding of it, understand why she's trying to drink, and then, you know, all the way through.
I
It's
don't-
a hard
It's gonna be a
situation.
tough cookie. I mean,
And
Yeah,
it's
I
hard.
don't think rationally that's
No, it doesn't work.
it's not gonna work.
Well, we don't know because we don't. Well, you might,
You
but
got a
we don't know
chemical-
his mom.
You got a chemical problem here.
But
But
this.
only at night. That's what he was saying.
Talking two different personalities. Believe me, it's a difficult situation for him.
But what I want you to hear from some of this is to find the tool, some of the tools that we're teaching you to help yourself, and try to use that to help you deal with. And like we were talking about earlier with John, these tools will not work in an unhealthy relationship. So if mom digs her heels in and she is not going to change her behavior, then this tool isn't going to be helpful for her, but it may be helpful for you in dealing with her.
right, for sure.
Main
And
thing-
especially
yeah,
calm that anxiety down.
True. Main thing for him, he needs to get the alcoholism handled. That's his.
Can
Well,
you,
that's-
can you
that's
control
not-
alcoholism in some way?
He said she's been drinking since she was 5 years old. She's not gonna shut it off like that.
Yeah.
But I think you definitely need to get other family members involved with this, because, I mean, the relationship can be as volatile as a husband and wife.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is your mom, and your heart goes out to her, and she's calling you because she knows she's gonna tug your heartstrings, and after this class or tomorrow morning, you're gonna be at that place picking her up. And then she's, you know, financially, you can't just say, okay, well, we're gonna have a full-time nurse at your house now, you know what I mean? That's buco dollars, you know what I mean? So, other family members are gonna have to come in, and it's
Yeah.
kinda sounds like she's using you to get her vodka, to
Yeah.
maybe
that's
be there to
kinda
be
my
yelled
role
at.
Right now, I am her full-time nurse, so.
And I think she's tugging at your heartstrings to do that. I think other family members need to get involved with this, especially at this stage.
Are you stuffing your feelings?
No, I think I yelled out the window the other night. That did a lot of good.
What about journaling? Can you do that more?
Yeah, I've been doing my journals. I'm not go.
No, I mean for you, not for me. Have you ever thought about doing it for yourself?
Oh no, I haven't.
Is that an idea that you consider?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I have pretty good memory, so. But yeah, maybe writing things down would help.
Well, not to help you remember, but as a way of venting some of your feelings, so that you don't feel like you have to yell out the window and then scare the neighbors.
Yeah. There's a bird.
Have you thought about talking about some of this stuff at meetings?
At these meetings?
No, at your self-help
Hey,
meetings.
Yeah, I opened up about her at one time, but it was part of a 4-person quick little conversation.
Right.
I didn't stand there in front of everybody and tell the whole story. I asked her to come with me once, but she wouldn't come with me.
All right, grab out a piece of paper real quick. So the next chapter in the book that we're going to talk about next week is about encouraging and accepting. So what I want you to do is so if you're in a current relationship, I want you to think about that person If you're not in a current relationship, I want you to think about your most recent ex. And I want you to identify what are the top 3 things that you have the most difficulty accepting about that person. The top 3 things that you have the most difficulty accepting about that person. Do I need to repeat one more time? The top 3 things that you're having the most difficulty accepting about that person.
This is homework for it to do before you start transcribing.
You're going to bring it next week. Written down, top 3 things. Did you get it?
Top 3, the most difficulty.
Accepting about the other person. Part 2 is I want you to identify the top 3 things about yourself that you need the most encouragement about. Top 3 things that you need the most encouraging about. So top 3 things that you have trouble accepting in other people, and the top 3 things that you need encouragement most. Who's got an example of something that you have difficulty in accepting in someone else, in your partner?
So, for example, my wife, just brought it up last night. She's up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to sleep. She has the lights on in her bedroom, and I'm downstairs, so it lights up the whole backyard. It wakes me up.
So you have difficult time accepting her sleep patterns.
Exactly, and I told her twice today about it.
And who can give an example of something about yourself that you would like encouragement about the most?
Me? For me, I'd like to have recognition and encouragement that I do work my butt off.
You're a hard worker.
I'm a hard worker, and I support the family.
Got it? Any thoughts? Everybody good?
No. What's the second one? Right here.
Tell me what you got so far.
This is identify something about, no, the thing the most difficult is something about the other person. Write it down about what's difficult about them, right?
What's the thing that you're having trouble accepting? So he doesn't like to accept his wife's sleep patterns.
Okay.
And then, did you get the second one? Tell me what you got so far.
Something things that you need encouragement the most.
Yes, about you. So what are something about yourself that you really need other people to encourage you? Like he was saying, I forgot what his was.
Aaron, staying up late.
Work hard.
Oh, I'm a hard worker.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Help you
I got it.
think.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, but is this what you were looking for? I had it a couple of weeks back.
I need most encouraging.
Refresh my memory.
This is 5 things you like about the partner and 5 things you want to change for them, and then vice versa.
Yeah, he's gonna wait.
Okay.
He wasn't even here today.
Then I'll do it again.
Did we talk about that?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, you guys have a good week. Behave yourselves.
Okay, Ben,
Yeah, I'll take all those, thank you.
Oh, please remember to give me these papers.
Hey, Ben, don't touch it.
And then I'll make a list of who was sitting where, so that way everybody knows.
I did not copyright.
You made it.
Would you mind stating?
No, I
here we go, call you.
a piece of paper I could steal. Please. Yeah, I'm gonna draw a diagram right now, before I forget.
The 4 columns one?
Recorder. Okay.
Yeah, the pros and cons.
Thank you, David. You're welcome.
Have a good week. Yep.
Thank you, sir. I can't remember if I gave you guys mine or not.
John, what is your work? I'm just curious.
What's that?
What's your work?
I grew up in the car industry.
Oh, right? Cool.
Anything in the auto industry, we'll do or have.
I was like, he's a baseball coach. Clear and simple.
You read that one wrong.
Next to John. And then Tony.
Huh? Sure, we have to.
And then you.
Have a good night,
You
man.
got the rest? Owen.
Good, man. Good seeing you.
H.
Give me a shout in the morning. I got a
V-A-N.
day running around, but I'm trying to be back.
Stephen.
Did you talk to Ben?
Oh, Ben.
Yeah,
Ben come.
yeah.
Busy.
Hi.
Ben, here's some more.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks,
And
John.
then here's a diagram of where every guy goes
Okay,
sit.
so I was meaning to
So
call
that way
you
you can't
today
tell who
about
wants to be shown and who doesn't.
tomorrow, but it became a
Oh,
hectic
great.
busy day and we had our whole
Thank you.
fiasco and we ended up being late.
Figured
But
it. Thanks,
2 to 4 works great for us, and we're looking forward to shooting with you. If your house is not a great location, that's okay. Although we would really like to be able to film you at your home, because that would be someplace that would be private and just us, and it would be significant to you. But again, if that's something that you're not comfortable with, we totally understand. Aside from that, could I possibly meet you in an area like near your home, maybe like a park or something, and then we could go for a walk and just talk and yeah, that'd be fantastic. Okay. Okay, sweet. Could you text me that address?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, did you ever get a chance to talk to your wife and
We
son?
talked a little bit about it today. So
Okay.
they're gonna chew on it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sweet.
go from there.
Okay. Thank you. Have a
Good
good night.
morning as well, just confirm everything.
Yeah, that sounds
Good to
perfect.
see you.
Yeah, it's my name, Todd Adams,
I had to talk to him because he did not text me back after I texted him. I should call him later. And there was also that one new. Did you sleep, by the way? I haven't cut yet.
I did not cut.
Okay, whatever.
You can use
it's fine.
pluralize.
Okay.
I'm here to show a progress report for my course that I'm taking.
Okay.
This is the first one, and you have to do it every 13 weeks.
Okay.
So this is the first one that I've done for the first 13 weeks of my program.
And you said this was optional, right? You volunteered to come to this, or is this
No.
mandatory? Oh, it's not. Okay.
For you, I volunteered.
Ah, yes. Okay.
This is not optional.
Okay. Isn't it this way? Because that's
C52.
yeah, 54.
Did we pass it?
Maybe.
I think so. You're 54, yeah.
So you'll be going over your progress report with a judge.
Yes.
And do you have one judge specifically assigned to your case, or is it you just see whatever's available?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay.
You guys are waiting for the same one?
Is it like the type of thing where you just show up at a specific time and you wait, or do you have like you wait in line like a DMV, or do you have like a specific time that you're?
You have to go in and you have to check in with the bailiff.
Okay.
And then you put your name in, and then they say you're on the schedule or you're not on the schedule.
Okay.
And so,
While we have a few minutes, would you mind if I put a little log on you? Just this little thing? And then for the sake of this, you don't have to put it under your shirt, so you're not going to see it anyway. And this can just go in your pocket or wherever it's convenient. And also do remember to take it off before we go in the courtroom, or I'll remember to remind you. So what are you thinking about right now? Like what are your thoughts going into this?
I'm thinking about how well the judge will be receptive to my progress report and how I've been doing in the program. I've been. I get critiqued at another counselor's discretion and how they feel I'm doing, rather than how I feel I'm doing. So it's another person judging me of my progress. He's a trained professional, but still it's how he feels I'm doing. And I'm about to go into the judge, and they're going to critique how they think I'm doing as well.
How do you feel you're doing, aside from whatever you said?
I mean, I feel like I'm, working towards the goals in my life to be happy and healthy, and working towards, doing the best for myself and my kid.
Yeah. How old is your kid, if you don't mind me asking?
He just turned 2 in July.
Okay. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yep.
how are you expecting this session to go?
My progress report, it shows that you get judged anywhere from 0 to 6, and I've received all 4s in my scoring, which means sometimes. The next stage would be, as expected, making good effort. So I feel that I'm making a good effort in this program, this class, and in my life, but my progress report shows that I'm doing sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't know how the judge will be receptive to that.
Where do you think that disparity comes from, the difference between how you think you're doing and how Dave thinks you're doing, or the judge?
I mean, I'm not really sure. You know, I'm doing my best to do what's best for me, and I am getting, you know, counseling and guidance through this program to aim me towards doing good, what they think is doing good, and what I believe is doing good. So I mean, it's to be judged like that, you know. I'm put into a situation now because of an incident that happened, you know.
Yeah, I would definitely imagine that feels very dehumanizing, you know, to be judged at, like, with a scale of numbers.
Right.
Are you nervous?
I'm a little nervous, a little disappointed in maybe myself, but disappointed in the whole situation, you know.
Sure.
You know, I didn't. To be honest, I never struck her or put my hands on her or anything, but I'm now, you know, facing charges that could be a felony for domestic violence. And so that's what this course is having me do.
Okay.
You know, I'll tell you the story. She had locked me out of my house, and after being locked out of the house for an hour, I had another appointment to get to, but she wouldn't allow me to get in to get my keys and appointment. So I kicked the door open and asked her where my keys are, and she said she didn't know. I looked in her purse and found my keys in her car, in her purse that she was hiding from me, preventing me from going to my next appointment for work. And so I had told her that was very disrespectful, and she had no right to do that. And I grabbed her purse and I dumped it out on top of her. And so when she called the cops on me for doing that, I understand that she felt threatened and everything, but the cops turned it so that they asked me to come back to the house because talk to me about action, and more than likely I'll be going to because I had hit her. And I said, she goes, and they told me, well, you dumped your purse on top of her, right? And they told me, and I said, yeah, I did. We go, well, that's assault. You assaulted your wife. So that's I understand that was wrong. I probably could have handled the situation a lot better, but it is what it is now. And I felt a little. My wife and I had already been having problems, and this is like. I felt like this is something that she wanted to have happen anyways.
You mean an incident of this sort?
An incident of this sort. She had been poking and prodding at me, and she locked me out of the house and for hours on end, you know what I mean? And I feel a little taken advantage of.
By her?
By her. I feel like she needed a son from me, and that's all she was really looking for. So.
Why do you feel that way?
After she had our son, she had already moved out into another room in the house and was being very short with me.
You mean that she moved? You don't sleep together anymore. She moved to.
No, she moved into another room in our house, and she just didn't want to have anything to do with me. She was being very disconnected,
But you were still living together. We were still living together.
Are you living together currently?
Well, after this incident, the DA put a emergency restraining order against me, my house, and my child, and my wife for 40 days. And
So does that mean you can't see any of those three things?
that's right. I wasn't able to go home, get clothes, see my son, see her, talk to her, do anything for 40 days. And within those 40 days, she was making arrangements to move everything out of our house and move my son, and now I'm at the mercy of, and that was about 8 months ago.
Okay.
So now I'm at the mercy of her letting me see my son at her will.
Really?
I don't have any choice in the matter, and we haven't gone to court for a child custody hearing yet, or for even our divorce. It looks like we're about to head into the courtroom.
Okay, perfect. Can I take that?
I have a speeding ticket I'm supposed to show up to in Newport Beach Jamboree Court.
Okay.
I'm thinking that the fire's over there on Jamboree.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna be open or not.
Yeah, I actually don't. I know a lot of my classes for Chapman were canceled today and all day yesterday. I live right near campus in Orange, and it's rough. It's like barely breathable over there. Like being in it.
Yeah, going up Jamboree right there. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's all closed back there.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Yeah, like my entire campus closed down, which is a weird thing that almost never happens.
So after this, I'm gonna go downstairs and I'm gonna go to the counter and talk to them and say, hey, is that court open? Can I get over there?
Okay. Because you have that other court hearing today as well, right? Or is that another day?
Okay, next matter is for Paul Corey, C-O-U-R-Y.
Morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, sir. Let's see, yours, 2 is here for, looks like 2 matters. One is for a BTP progress, and I have that in front of me. It appears you're doing fine. Okay, you're progressing, so I'll set yours 2 for a new progress review hearing date. You're ordered to return on August 8, 2018, 8:30 a.m. in Department C-47, and bring with you your next progress report.
August 18th?
January 8, 3 months from now, January 8, 2018. It also appears you have
C-47?
C-47, 8:30 a.m., and be sure to bring with you your progress report, your next one. And it looks like you also have a traffic matter, and you were supposed to.
Yeah, I see that in off Jamboree in Newport.
Okay, so you were supposed. This was by the Orange County Sheriff's Department, issued July 10, 2017. Let me pull up the citation. Okay, let's see. On El Toro Road in Laguna Hills?
Yes, ma'am.
Ring a bell? Okay, you were supposed to appear on that case by August 25. I see you had it extended to today's date, so let's go ahead and proceed with that matter. And so what I need from you is for you to enter a plea. Your choices are guilty, no contest, or not guilty. The charge against you is making a U-turn at a controlled intersection from the improper lane. If you were to plead guilty or no contest, you're looking at a total of $330. If you want traffic school, it goes up another $54. If you want to plead not guilty, I'll set it for trial in the next 45 days. Before I hear from you, please know that this is an infraction matter. Because your liberty is not at stake, you don't have a right to a court-appointed attorney, but you do have a right to hire an attorney to represent you at any stage of the proceedings, including for the arraignment for your plea. And if you need more time to hire an attorney, just let me know and I'll continue it out for a short period to give you a further opportunity to do that. You also have the right to confront and cross-examine any witnesses, including the officer at trial, the officer who issued the citation against you. You have the right to testify on your own behalf. You have the right to choose not to testify. And if choosing not to testify, that won't be used against you in any way. You also have the right to use the court processes to subpoena any witnesses or documents that you may need in your defense. So again, if you plead guilty or no contest, you're looking at $330. Another $54 if you want traffic school. Or complete not guilty, I'll set it for trial. What would you like to do?
Well, there's no excuse for not following traffic signals and signs, I'm guilty of that. I was following a car that made a U-turn, he pulled us both over. I should have been paying attention to the signs and not the car, so I'm guilty of it. So I'll plead guilty to that.
Okay, did you want traffic
If
school?
I could have leniency on paying the fine a little bit.
Well, I'll send you to collections and you can set up a payment plan with them. If after working with the collections department and disclosing your finances, if they determine that you can't even pay a reasonable monthly amount, and they'll take into consideration any other monies owing in other cases. But if they determine that, then they'll give you various options, which could include coming back into the courtroom. The collections department assists the court with ability to pay determinations. So I would send you there to determine that. So at this time, you still wish to plead guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, did you want traffic school?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so I'm accepting your guilty plea. Did you want to set up a payment plan through collections or talk to them about your finances?
I'm gonna have to.
Okay, so I'm sending you to collections today. Report there today, downstairs, first floor. And cooperate with them and disclosing your finances and, if appropriate, setting up a payment plan. Okay, and making your payments. That'll take care of that case. And then we'll see you back in 3 months on the other case, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So these are the minutes from my court hearing from the original dispute.
Okay.
I was sentenced to pay $200 to a domestic violence program, pay $500 to a domestic violence women's battered program, pay $150 restitution for court, pay $40 for another court appearance. That totals up to $910.
Wow.
And another $300 to a victim witness fund. I've had to take do 8 hours of community service. I've had to, as you know, I'm signed up for a 52-week program that's once a week. That's all been, I mean, besides financially, it's been, detrimental to, it's almost like a second part-time job where I have to, I have somewhere I have to be at least once a week,
if I don't show up, there's severe repercussions. I could end up in jail. I could, at the very minimum, I have to go to court, take time off of work to, just like I am today, to show up to a program, you know. And this is all, you know, I feel, you know, a little, I don't know, sad or upset or aggravated that, you know, this is all happening because, you know, my wife we couldn't see eye to eye, and she wanted something else that I didn't want, and I feel a little taken advantage of.
What do you mean specifically when you say that she wanted something you didn't want?
Well, she didn't see, there was no need to have a connection with me. She had a need to have a connection with a child, and, you know, I kind of fell for that, as far as I love you and we're going to live together forever and ever, and this will be a husband and wife situation, and whatever problems arise, we can work through it, you know, and I feel that that's not what she was looking for. You know, she was looking for someone to have a child with, and that was most important to her. A husband was secondary. So I feel taken advantage of in that way, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's hard to deal with, you know. I mean, even under the circumstances of, you know, what the law calls an assault, you know, on my wife, that shouldn't have been a drawing line. I've been in construction a lot of my life, doing construction, then moved up to managing jobs and project manager and things like that, and now I'm in a fairly stressful sales position. I have a lot of appointments to go to, and I can either make a lot of money or I can make zero money. I set my own destination, and it's up to me and the industry to be able to sell these jobs and make money or not. My sister lives in Anaheim Hills, and she had to be evacuated last night, so she's staying at my house, and her 2 kids are as well. Okay. I'm glad I get to help them out, but it's unfortunate that they have to go through all that. It doesn't look like their home is in risk right now, but the fire could take a turn. I'm the youngest of 6. My mom and dad separated when I was about in 3rd grade. You know, they're actually a lot older than me. Okay. There's 4 girls and 1 brother. My brother's about 3 years older than me. And I'm 36, and my oldest sister is 52, 53. Wow. Okay. So they weren't like in the home or anything like that when I was growing up.
From what it sounded like there was definitely some abuse on both sides of that relationship. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, we started out with small arguments, and small arguments turned into big arguments. And then once we got to a level where it was okay to be at this high level of yelling and screaming at each other, now any argument that started would automatically go to that level of disrespect, of you know, name calling and things like that. It just goes immediately right to that point. I'd asked for months and months if we could go to see a counselor, go sit down with somebody, go talk to somebody. Let's have our parents get together. Let's go to your dad's house. Let's go to my dad's house, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about this. It seemed like it was just always too late. And I guess what I'm learning, and you know, I'm from this class. I am glad that I'm going through it. You know, I've learned a lot of things, and you know, it's not. I mean, it's too late for our relationship, but you know, it'll teach me in the future, you know. And this is what I was begging and pleading with my wife. We don't have the tools. We need to learn how to draw a line in the sand and learn how to respect each other and how to handle issues as they come up, you know. But and now I'm learning them, you know. So I mean, this class has helped me a lot, and you know, I'm glad I'm going through it now. It's helping me move on with my life in a better manner of, you know, how to co-parent with my wife and things like that. And, you know, I'm learning not to take it right to that level of disrespect when we have a disagreement, no matter what she's doing, you know, or saying, or, you know,
a learning experience. It's something maybe that, you know, if some of us would have learned before things got too intense in our relationship, then, you know, a lot of these things could have been avoided. Which is silly, because I had, you know, foreseen this happening one day or another, that we were going to be separating. You know, I think she's always been kind of looking for an excuse to get out, but I don't. It was just so silly to me, you know, that she's unhappy with herself. She's unhappy with a lot of things in her life and my life, and we're trying to move forward to do that.
Would you mind, saying those last two sentences again?
Yeah, I'm doing everything in my life to move forward, you know, and learning proper techniques and things that'll help, you know.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'd asked us for months that if we could go sit down with a counselor, if we can go work on things, but it became too late in her eyes.
Did you ever end up going to a counselor or sitting down with anybody?
No, not with her. We went one time.
Okay.
We went one time to a counselor, and it didn't seem like it was a counselor that had his heart into seeing anybody. He saw us at 8:30 at night. He seemed to not be very connected, so he let us talk first.
Okay.
And he didn't control the situation. So she talks, and then I start talking over her, and then I talk, and then she starts talking over me.
Okay.
And then, you know, after about 10 minutes of a heated argument that he's not controlling, he says, "Look, I've seen this before. You guys should just get a divorce."
Really?
And this is supposed to be a couples therapist. He goes, "It looks like it's too far." And I said, "Come on, let's go." We ended a half an hour meeting early, and I said, "Come on, let's go." And I went outside and talked to her. And I said, "Look, this guy doesn't know, his head from his ass.
Sure.
If he's there to help counsel us on mending a relationship, he should be, you know, he should control the situation, and he should give us some guidelines into going into the conversation instead of letting us go in there and do what we normally do at home."
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, after that, she was unwilling to go back and see a counselor. She said, "I did my best, I tried, so now it's just, you do whatever you want to do, I'll do whatever I want to do." You know, it's a little difficult. That still is difficult. You know, I do, you know, we have a 2-year-old son, and it's difficult to, you know, just throw that all away, you know, because one or both of us were unwilling to be responsible adults and talk to each other on a level of respect and you know, work through issues that we should be working through instead of giving up and yelling at each other and blaming each other. And this is what it goes back to. I enjoy going to this class. You know, it's showing me, giving me the tools to handle the situations that are coming up even now, even when we are separated.
What is your status with your wife currently?
So we haven't technically gone to a divorce court yet. That should be going on in the next month or month and a half. We'll be starting our first proceedings in the court, doing that.
Okay. And
so,
you said that there are things that still come up now, even through this process. What's an example of something like that?
I mean, she feels that she can make demands on how she wants things to go, when I can see my son, when I cannot see my son, you know, and we haven't even gone to court yet, and we have no legal binding agreement, but in the state of California, it's a little difficult for the guy to take position on any of that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So she moved back to her home. I stayed in the house that I, you know, provided for us. And she moved to her home, and she took my son, and she says, "Well, now you can see your son Sunday night, drop him off at school Monday morning, and then you can see him again on Thursday night after school to Friday morning, drop him off at school." So she set these parameters of when I can and when I can't see my son.
Yeah.
and there's no legal binding agreement thing, I can't do the same. But if I was to take possession of my son and say, hey, now you can see him on Sundays and Thursdays, she's going to call the cops on me. And she's going to say I'm kidnapping my son, or she won't let me see my son. So I'm avoiding all that situation. And I miss my son every day. You know, and I wake up, I'm normally used to seeing him in the morning, every morning, seeing him when I get home from work. And it's, you know, now she gets to dictate when and where I can see my son, and that's a little disheartening.
Yeah, it sounds really difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult, you know. And now that, you know, with this case that I have going on for, it was reduced from a felony domestic violence to a misdemeanor, which is great. I'm not a felon now, you know, and you know, I guess the judge decided to take it case by case matter, and I didn't put a hand on her, I didn't touch her, I didn't, you know, all I did was dump the contents of her purse on her lap and tell her she was being very disrespectful. I dumped her contents to get my car keys so I can leave the house and not be in a volatile situation.
Yeah, I know we talked about this earlier, but would you mind going through how the situation happened again for us?
Okay, and I guess you're gonna chop all this up and fill it so it's not all just run on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good, okay. So, I'm a sales rep for a construction company, and I ran 2 appointments in the morning. I had come home, I was in the kitchen, had my paperwork laid out on the kitchen island, and I was going through and completing contracts and making phone calls, and I decided to go to lunch. Well, I had just built a hot rod, and so I went out the back door, left my truck keys on the counter, and went out the back door and left all my paperwork so I can come back in, gather it up, and go to my next appointment after my lunch. I come back home, and rather than the nanny be there watching my son, she was there, and she had thrown all my paperwork outside in the backyard and locked me out of the house and was very distraught, just screaming at me I would never get in this house again, using profanity, F you, F you. I said, what's wrong? She's like, you should be at work, not out playing in your car. And I said, all my work that I was working on is just thrown out in the backyard. And now I can't go into my house. Just give me my keys so I can go and go to my next appointment after I gathered up all my paperwork off the ground. Gathered it all up, put it in my briefcase, and I can't get into my truck. So she opens the garage door to the house, and she says, you can go, and she comes back to the backyard, and she screams through the door, you can leave now, and don't ever come back. This is coming really honestly out of left field. She's a little neurotic and screaming, taking this way out of proportion. And so I went around the garage, my keys are not in my car, I can't get them, so I kicked open my own door to the house, walked into the house, looked around in the kitchen, could not find my car keys, grabbed her purse that was on the counter, and found my car keys inside of her purse. I said, now I'm late for my appointment, and da-da-da, it's all because of you being such a disrespectful B-word. I dumped her contents out on top of her, and, you know, and I guess, you know, looking back, I could have handled a million different ways, you know, but that was the level of disrespect that we could take our relationship to right away. I now, looking back, it's highly inappropriate to call my wife the B word, you know, but it's also highly inappropriate for her to lock me out of the house over such a, what she felt was wrong, you know. It's just something that, you know, looking back, would I have done it differently? Yeah, I would have. I guess I didn't really understand why she was doing this. I didn't care why she was doing why she was locking me out. I just wanted to move on. And, you know, when we let things get so volatile to those points that's where we go in our arguments, and that's where we go in our fights. So.
You said that you didn't know at the time. Have you since kind of looked back at it and reflected a little bit, and does it make a little more sense why she did what she did and why she was behaving that way?
It honestly, it doesn't. It doesn't. I don't see, like, if she has something, let's say I was doing wrong by going out and having lunch. I mean, honestly, she must have thought that I was just playing around all day.
Yeah.
But that's not the truth. Mm-hmm. I had my work out I'd already run 2 appointments in that morning. Mm-hmm. Came home for lunch. I normally never come home for lunch. I don't have the time to come home for lunch, but fortunately I did have the opportunity to come home for lunch. I came home, made phone calls, getting ready for my next appointment in the afternoon. Okay. And she had told the nanny to leave. She must have. I think she had a bad day at work, because there was no reason for her to be home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, and when I'm paying for a nanny to watch her kid until 4:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30 latest. You know what I mean? So she'd come home, I think, in a bad mood, and you know, decided to take it out on me, and I end up getting the brunt of a lot of her anger and frustration from her work and from her whatever she has going on, and she'll take it out on me, and you know, that's something we never handled in a appropriate way.
Yeah.
She starts screaming, I start screaming. That's what we do. You know, I tried to, you know, control the situation. I tried to say, please, let's lower our voices. Let's talk like normal human beings. Let's respect each other a little bit. She was unable to control herself in that manner. So.
Yeah. It sounds like these outbursts are kind of common from her.
They are. I mean, even now that she's not living with me in my house, she has my son. She'll still feel entitled to send me page after page of email or text messages that are horrible, disgraceful things that she's telling me. You know what I mean? I'll never see my son again. I'm you know, this, that, and the other, and you know, it's you know, and she can never really pinpoint why she's so mad. You know, what she's so angry about, and she you know, it was a bad situation. I'm actually glad I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, that maybe it was an unhealthy relationship that we were in the first place, and now I just have to learn how to co-parent and do the best I can.
What does that light at the end of the tunnel look like for you? Is that like a certain point that you want to reach, and what does that point look like?
I mean, I definitely have had high expectations and goals set for myself with her in my life, you know. A lot of that has changed, obviously. I still have, you know, goals that, you know, maybe one day I could be in a healthy, happy relationship. You know, it's, you know, where we both respect each other and take the time to, if there is a problem, to take the time to talk to each other on a respectful level so that things don't escalate.
Sure. You said once before that you didn't know that she could never pinpoint why she was so angry. Why do you think she's angry?
Well, she likes to blame a lot of her anger and frustration from me on my family.
Really? Like
my family, she believes is somehow against her in some way.
Do you think they are?
Absolutely not. I mean, for one example, she really this is last week. We have my son in a school, it's called a Montessori. And it's more of an accelerated daycare, if you will. You know, they're teaching him to do things, put puzzles together, and you know, do the life skills of pouring water and washing your hands and going to the bathroom and doing all this, you know, rather than a daycare, they just let him run around and take naps.
Sure.
So this is more control. It's about $1,000 a month. Okay. And
I looked into transferring him to another Catholic school.
Okay.
So I had my sister also look into transferring him to a school. And so my sister had gone in there just to check on what the requirements were to enroll a child, how old they are, what was the time frame that they have to be there and can't leave. So I guess my sister had represented herself as my son's mother.
Okay.
So to go in there and be able to get an appointment and talk to the administrator there.
Sure.
So I don't know if that's good, bad, or anything. She's just doing more of an admin type work, like how can we get him in here? What's the time frame? How much does it cost? What, how old does he have to be, and things like that. And she had caught wind of that and completely lost her mind, saying she thinks she needs to get a restraining order against my sister Trish to keep her away from him. She's evil. She shouldn't be doing that. But she's not my wife's not paying for the school. I'm paying for the school.
Sure.
She's not checking on the school. I'm checking on the school.
Okay.
So after she found out about that, she page after page after how my family is against her and trying to take advantage of her. I don't know what she wants, but she's like, she thought at that moment that she should get a restraining order against my sister. And my sister is the one who's always offered us, you guys need to do a date night. Let's make it on Thursdays. I'm available to watch your son Thursdays.
Yeah.
So, from 1 to almost 2 years old, we would try to have a date night. And it was starting to work. We were starting to be able to go out together, which we weren't doing anymore. And, something would come up where she'd want to cancel it or,
You mean your wife would want to cancel it?
Yeah. So, I don't know. She feels very disconnected from me and my family, and she wants to be disconnected from them. It's been difficult. It's been very difficult to do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds really hard.
Yeah.
You said that you think she wants to be disconnected?
Yeah.
Why do you think she feels that way?
I honestly, that's an issue that she just kind of battle with her, I come home from work. She comes home from work. She's normally there before I come home. And I'll come home from work, and she's sitting on the couch. And she's digging through her phone, and she's got the TV on, and would hardly notice that I walked in the door. Hi, how you doing? So I put all my things down. I walk over to her, and hi, sweetheart, how are you? Give her a kiss on the cheek and everything like that. And have to be always constantly reaching for her attention and everything like that. She could care less, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That sounds really tough. I'm sorry.
It was tough. I felt, that's what I mean. I feel taken advantage of a little bit that, like, well, what am I here for? Was I here to provide a roof over your head, pay all the bills in the house, and give you a child? Yeah. And then you were, ever since the child was born, you decided, well, I'll spend 2 days living in another room in the house, and then I'll spend 3 days, and then all of a sudden, I'm going to move everything I have into that room, and I'm going to live in this room. It's a year after my son is born. She was living in another room in my house. Yeah. And I'm able to do nothing about it. She just completely signed off, completely wrote off about our relationship. I mean, it's like, you don't want to talk about it? We can't do anything? So we're just roommates in a house that I pay all the bills in. Yeah. And I don't make her feel entitled. I don't feel entitled to do all that. I don't make her feel guilty for doing that. But at the same time, she doesn't feel guilty about just taking advantage of me. Yeah. So if a weekend comes up and we have a free Sunday together, well, she's going to take my son and she's going to go do something with her friends. Yeah. Without even consulting me, this is what I have planned. So it's like, what am I mean, I felt like nothing. I felt very strange.
Yeah. Do you think that divide happened like all of a sudden, or was it more of a slow buildup?
I mean, one day a week. I mean, she'd pick a fight, or I'd pick a fight, and we'd get into an argument, and then she'd go and stay in another room for a night or two. But in the meanwhile, completely avoiding me the entire 2 days. Wouldn't say a word, wouldn't say hi, wouldn't say good morning, wouldn't say good night. And, you know, it would always take me coming back to her, sweetheart, I love you. Let's try and make this work. What can I do? Da 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 da. I could maybe coax her into coming back to the bedroom and staying a night or two, and then it's always me pulling for her attention, always me, you know, looking for her affection.
I would imagine that really hurts.
It really does, and I don't really understand it. It's like, I don't understand, like, you know, why we had to go through this. You know, nothing was really a buildup that led to a point of, well, now it's done. You know what I mean? It's just like, she just always just felt like, this is how it's going to be. This is all I need from you.
Yeah. And it sounds like she doesn't really have much desire to really change.
Well, she doesn't, and she, none at all, because she's that type of person where she has a master's degree, she has a successful career, and everything that she says is right, and every opinion that she wants to do or whatever is her way. And if I have anything to say of it, I'm ridiculed. Not only not accepted, I'm ridiculed. You know what I mean? So it was just an unhealthy relationship altogether. And I'll take blame for my, you know, things that I've done, but she won't take blame for hers.
Yeah.
So all I'm looking for is looking forward to the time that I can spend with my son, the money I can save for him and his future, for our future, and, you know, moving on with what I need to do to lead a healthy and happy life.
Okay. Do you have to get going, by the way?
Yeah, you can
I
get
don't want to make you late for your.
See where we're at. I feel like I'm doing a lot of the talking.
Oh, thank you for sharing. No,
Yeah,
I mean, you're really articulate. We'd stop you and say, can you say this again like this?
I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah, of course.
I'm trying, so.
Starting route to 3908 Maple Avenue.
If I leave now, I'll get there at 11:47. We got a few minutes.
Okay.
So if you had some questions, I'd like to answer them for you.
I mean, it's not, I mean, just hearing a story, it sounds like there's a lot of contributing factors. So I think we're mainly interested in, like, what did the relationship look like at the onset? Then what are the warning signs you're learning for when you are moving on and you're going to move on to another woman, a wonderful woman, I hope, and, you know, but
So what are some of the warning signs?
what are you learning that you need from a relationship,
Well, I mean,
or that you can, you know?
I mean, you need, this is what I think is important, and this is what I'm really starting to open my eyes about. If you're, is determining whether you're in a healthy relationship or not. Yeah. And if you're not in a healthy relationship and you're unable, you or the other person is unable to face those facts of what's making it an unhealthy relationship, whether it's being closed-minded to what you want to tell me, or me being closed-minded about what I'm, you know, how we're going to work on this issue. Let's say I believe that I don't like that you leave all your dishes in the bedroom on the nightstand.
Sure.
You know, I don't like how you leave a dish or a cereal bowl on the nightstand. Mm-hmm. And if I can't convey that bothers me, and you can't be receptive to it, then, or you are receptive to it, but you don't care. You're still going to do it anyways, knowing that it bothers me. That's one of the signs that if you don't care about a cereal bowl on the nightstand, then what else don't you care about? And disregarding what I believe is disrespectful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I shouldn't have to tell you and get to the point where I'm getting angry about the cereal bowl. If I'm going to keep getting angry about the cereal bowl, then I need to move on because there's other things that are going to bother me as well. And if I can't accept you for leaving if you're going to leave your cereal bowl there and I can't accept it, then that's my issue as well.
Yeah.
You know, who am I to tell you where to leave this? But if I can't handle it, if it's gonna drive me to being aggravated and more aggravated and more aggravated, that was just a cereal bowl.
Sure.
There's gonna be other things in our relationship that you're gonna disregard my feelings about. I need to move on. You need to move on. Maybe you can find someone who does it by leaving a cereal bowl on the nightstand. It doesn't bother them. And maybe it's not a big issue, but if I feel it's a big issue and I feel it's a thing of disrespect, then I have my own issues about that. But if you are disregarding my thoughts and feelings about it, there's an issue there. So if we keep doing this, it's never going to work. So it's finding that balance between what's a healthy relationship and what's not a healthy relationship, and being able to address all these issues in a loving, respectful way. And if you can't, then you need to move on.
Yeah, it sounds like there were a lot of like little issues, things like dishes in the sink. Do you think that in any way those were kind of, that you guys fighting about those little issues was kind of representative of some bigger issues?
Absolutely, absolutely. I gave the cereal dish as just an example, but yeah.
What was the breaking point? Like, I remember dating somebody and they didn't come with me to the hospital, and somebody in my family got sick, and I was like, all right, you're gone. You know, what was one that you now can look back on and say, man, next time I don't get this respect in this place or something.
I mean, the incident that led me to the legal trouble, that's definitely one of the issues. Yeah, you know, she's gonna disrespect me to a level that just will send me over to the edge. Is horrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely is.
Screaming at me on the other side of the door saying, I'm never gonna effing get in this house again. You're never gonna effing see your son again. And this is over an issue of, you thought I should be out working rather than out playing in my dune buggy.
Yeah.
When I look at it, I just came home really quick, went to lunch in my hot rod, and then was coming home to go and handle the rest of my day.
Yeah.
I didn't handle it well, but her locking me out of the house and screaming all that to me, what else? I mean, that's leading up to something.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Did you feel like you hurt her? You know, physically, did you hurt? You know.
Physically, I don't believe I hurt her. Maybe I did lose some trust. You know,
Sure.
kind of scary if somebody kicks open the door.
Yeah.
And you know.
Would you mind actually restarting that thought? Yeah, just from the very beginning, if you could.
Yeah, that's not good.
Oh, do you feel that you hurt her physically?
Well, I don't feel like that I hurt her physically, and I don't think I think she feels the same. But I think I may have lost some trust with her. You know, it's kind of scary. You know, somebody kicks open the door, and screaming at you. That could have definitely lost some trust, and maybe made her feel a little unsafe. I understand that. You know, it's like I said, it's that level that you keep going to, and you keep going to, and you keep going to, that the second you have a fight, it'll automatically go to that point.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm kind of running out of juice for this thing.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's.
Thank you for your.
But thank you so much for your time today and for everything you said. I really, really appreciate it. Well, I'm actually still gonna use it. Thank you so much. It's incredible.
So at Wellmore Psychology Group, I'm the clinical director of the whole program, and then I'm also a group facilitator. I do 2 male batterers intervention program groups myself.
And like, what do those programs like entail?
The batterers intervention program is a 52-week program that consists of weekly 2-hour groups. Weekly 2-hour groups. Sorry. Weekly 2-hour groups. They do an hour intake at the beginning of the program and then an hour exit session at the end of the program.
Okay. And then like, do they like all enter at the same time? Like, do you have to wait for like a new session to start?
It's called open enrollment, so at any given time there could be a client in the group that's on group 50, on group 25, 26, 13, 5. We like that better for the group process so that there are senior group members in the group at the same time where new group members are coming in. It helps group process so that the senior group members can help the new guys feel more comfortable, or the new women feel more comfortable, and so that they can begin to talk about some of the issues that we need to tackle in order for them to complete successfully.
Nice. And how did these men and women, people, get kind of put into this program?
There are multiple ways that a client could come to the Batterers Intervention Program. We get referrals from criminal court, family court, social services, probation department, parole department, and then occasionally there are voluntary enrollments.
So what kind of makes the difference between someone going into like this program versus like having to like...
Oops, sorry. Let me turn
No,
it
you're
off.
good, you're good.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Luckily it happened like not when you were in the middle of something like super
I
amazing
know,
that I'd
right?
be like, no, you have to say it again.
Right, sorry.
So no, you're totally fine. It happens. It's just like a matter of like, would it have interrupted like an incredible soundbite and stuff. You're doing amazing, and I love how you're repeating and doing full sentences. All right, so kind of going back into
Really
it.
good full sentences.
Apparently I can't do full
PhD.
sentences. It's like you have a PhD and like are, you know, intelligent and done stuff. Anyways, so what is kind of the difference between like someone who would get
Keep going.
into like like these types of programs versus someone who would like maybe like serve time or something like that?
The benefit of them being court-ordered into the program is the legal system has determined that instead of being penalized with custody time, no, I don't want to say that.
I don't know what the best word is.
Let me think. The best benefit of a man or a woman coming into the Batterers Intervention Program is that we can teach them much needed relationship skills, emotional regulation skills, self-soothing skills, coping skills that they might not have had access to growing up or in any of their educational systems.
You kind of talked about like stuff like they didn't have when they were growing up. Is there like a common thing that kind of maybe like developmental, they like missed a stage? Like is there kind of a common thing that tends to lead people into this kind of behavior?
I'm not sure if I would feel comfortable saying that that anybody in the program has missed a developmental stage, but I think maybe some of the similarities are a good percentage of the men and women who come may have experienced domestic violence as a child in their house growing up, either between their parents or maybe were experiencing some child abuse towards themselves. It could also have been maybe they experienced an early relationship, maybe a teen dating relationship where violence was an issue, or maybe one of their very first adult relationships.
What is the like percentage rate of people who like come back to this program versus like what is kind of the success rate, do you think?
In Orange County, we don't have recidivism rates yet. Orange County Probation is currently conducting a study to determine recidivism rates. From from anecdotal experience, I would say it's very low, maybe 10 to 25% recidivism. I'm sorry, what was the other question you asked?
Yeah, just that basically. Yeah, kind of going off onto that, I guess, like what would you consider a successful journey, I guess, through this process?
Well, for the legal system, a successful completion is they have to attend at least 52 group sessions. They get quarterly progress reports that they take back to the referring party, sometimes the judge, sometimes their probation officer or their social worker. We rate them on a 7-point Likert scale, and there's 6 categories that we rate them on. A person who would successfully complete would be able to take responsibility for their behavior, learn how to successfully manage some of their emotional states, control their behavior, have better, more healthy, effective romantic relationships, relationships outside the home, maybe at work, friends, family.
Nice. Sorry, I'm looking at the questions. Like while in this program, can you kind of tell when someone is like changing and going to be successful, such like, are you able to kind of predict that 10 to 20% that would reoffend per se?
Absolutely. Ongoing success is clearly visible. The group sessions are very dynamic and interacting, and a lot of the men and women who are learning and practicing the skills will talk about their practice of using the skills in their daily life, and will process how the skill was successful, how it was not successful, and maybe fine-tune their use of an emotional skill. The progress reports are also clearly indicative of their progress or lack thereof, and we address the progress reports in the group, so that way the client themselves can be a part of the process of their own evaluation and fine-tuning whether and the clients themselves can participate in the process of developing a more refined treatment plan to work on specific skills that they need to work on in the remaining time in the program. My guess is that the clients who are likely going to recidivate are probably going to be clients who get terminated early on in the program, maybe for excessive misses. That's the most frequent cause for termination from the program, and getting referred back to either their court, probation officer, social worker, or parole agent. I would guess that those are the clients that are likely going to reoffend because they haven't been able to stay in the program long enough to develop some good coping skills. In my personal experience, the men and women who are able to stay in the program for longer periods of time become much more open and willing to learn. And once they start seeing the smaller successes of maybe using some of the coping skills, emotional regulation skills, they become that much more invested in staying in the treatment for longer, and then therefore having better relationships.
What kind of is the program per se? Like what is kind of, you talked about the time difference, like time stuff, but like what kind of would be a normal session?
At my company, we split the 2 hours into 2 parts. So typically for the first hour and a half, we do more therapy and counseling, issues that clients are having in their relationships, maybe during the week, issues that had to do with the event that brought them to the program. A lot of times childhood issues are brought up, family of origin issues are processed in the group sessions. And then the last half hour of the session is what we call didactic, or where we teach them a specific skill, maybe how to do an adult timeout, how to use a problem-solving skill, how to calm themselves down, how to use stress management tools, anger management tools.
Do people who tend to be in this program tend to have other issues like anger management, stuff like that, or their problems like that kind of go hand in hand, or like substance abuse, for example?
There's a good portion of the population in domestic violence who also are suffering from substance abuse. I would say at least 30 to 40% of the clients who come to us have either a current or past history of substance abuse.
And then like other anger issues or anything like that as well as?
Well, the way that we view domestic violence is not necessarily an anger issue per se, but it's more about coping with emotional stressors, relationship stressors, day-to-day stressors.
What, like,
Do you mind if I close the door, or are you getting okay sound?
Can I stand up for a second?
Of course.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
did you want
Oh, is there too much noise?
Oh, it's fine. It was just better quality with it. It's out.
You want me to lean that while you're doing it? My voice is starting to crack.
Oh, yeah? You good? Yeah.
What are, like, if you had to think through kind of like societal things that kind of lead people into, is your light flickering too much?
Is it?
It's flickering.
Sorry.
Just like, yeah, there it is. Should be good now.
Okay. Thank you.
That's good. So are there kind of like societal things that you think kind of are like a common thing, or like, for example, like why would men be more inclined to be abusers than women, for example?
Well, there's a lot of controversy in the field about whether or not men are the primary aggressors in domestic violence. Some of the research is suggesting that it's 50-50, 48-52, but pretty close to being even on both sides. And then there's also the conflicting cases of where both people are the aggressors towards each other, almost similar to mutual combat. But I think a lot of the issues in the United States culture that contributes to domestic violence being as rampant as it is we don't teach our children how to have healthy relationships. We don't teach our children how to handle and deal with our emotions effectively.
What would you kind of like, in an ideal world, changing the system, like going back, like starting childhood, what would you kind of want to see implemented to kind of prevent things like this?
In an ideal world, I would love to be able to have classes in elementary school, junior high, and high school about how to have healthy relationships, how to identify what our feelings are, and teach them various coping skills about how to handle their feelings in a more effective way. I think in an ideal world, more parenting education would be helpful so that children can be raised with positive tools from the beginning.
Yeah, I could see that. What would you kind of change about the process after there's been like an incident per se, and like starting from like the court to like going through the program? What kind of changes would you like to see?
I think there needs to be a lot of education towards the general public about when conflict starts to happen in our relationships that maybe become unmanageable, and to kind of destigmatize domestic violence or even conflict in itself, so that people feel more comfortable coming and getting help before it becomes an issue with the legal system.
Do you think the legal system handles these situations well?
I can only speak about what happens in Orange County, and in Orange County we are very fortunate to have the Orange County Probation Department. It's very collaborative with the agencies that are approved to do Batterers Intervention Program. We have a very supportive system, an interactive system, where they have developed standards for programs to meet minimum requirements in order to provide good treatment for the men and women who are at least court-ordered into the domestic violence program. The courts are highly involved with the clients who are getting into court-ordered Batterers Intervention Program, and criminal cases and most family court cases, clients have to take a progress report back to the court to show that they're either progressing or not progressing. And then what I've been told by some of the clients in my program is when a client goes to the court with a negative progress report or a maybe not so positive progress report, the judge has a conversation with them about what they need to do differently, about some expectations of specific scores that they need to get in order to keep continuing in the program.
Awesome. Can you kind of, going back to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, and you talked about this when we had met before, kind of what the stages these people go through, like after so many weeks, where should they be at?
Mm-hmm. So generally with court mandated treatment, there are some initial resistance issues, maybe some denial, blaming of the behavior towards their partner, or minimizing the actions that they've taken. Usually the first month to 2 months is just getting the person oriented to the program, letting them see, because of the open enrollment process, that there are other clients in the same group who, excuse me,
It's okay.
I apologize.
What happened? It's good. It's good. You can just start
Um,
your thought over again. So you were talking about kind of the first few months and the effect of open enrollment.
Yes.
You're doing great.
How embarrassing.
Super cute.
No.
God, what did I say at the beginning?
You were saying kind of, we were talking about the different steps and kind of like stages of like where they are after so many weeks. You're kind of talking about the first month or two.
So when a client comes into court mandated treatment, usually or typically the first month to 2 is getting the client oriented to the program, dealing with some of their initial resistance to being ordered into treatment rather than coming to get help on their own. We deal with clients who are minimizing their responsibility for their behavior, either blaming their partner for the behavior, feeling victimized by the legal system, and some initial resistance and defensiveness. So the first couple of months we are opening them to the process of what the program can offer them. And a good part of why we have open enrollment is so that when a new client comes in and maybe is struggling with some of the resistance, they can see other men and women who are in the same process in the room for similar types of behaviors, and they can also see how the clients are becoming more invested in their own treatment and helping each other to get some of the skills that we're teaching, or process some of their own issues with the help of some of their peers who are further along in the program.
How about after the first like month or two, kind of what is the continuous progress after that?
Well, once the client gets past the initial resistance or defensiveness and they start to see that there's a benefit from the program, typically what happens in the second to the end of the program, they're a lot more invested in the group discussions. They're much more involved. They bring issues on their own to group, maybe another argument that they've had with their partner, if they're permitted to see the partner because of restraining order issues, or sometimes the clients will start to make connections between some of the issues that they're struggling with in the present time to some of the issues that they struggled with growing up in their family of origin or in their houses growing up. And we start to explore some of the roots of their relationship issues.
Nice. What kind of keeps the men and women, but we've been talking about the men, what keeps the people kind of accountable to the program, do you think?
Do you mean legally or emotionally?
Go with both.
Okay, so the California Penal Code that has set up the need and the monitoring of batterers intervention program has specific criteria that the men and women who are court ordered into the program have to meet. So for example, of the 52-week sessions, a client is allowed to miss 3. If they miss more than 3, we have to refer them back to the referring agency, send a report to the court identifying that this particular client has missed their 4th, 5th, 6th group, and then the court has to deal with the violation of their probation in whatever way they see fit. Sometimes if the client brings documentation maybe from their job that they had to do work-related travel, the judge may vacate the miss so that it doesn't exist. The programs themselves are not permitted to excuse or vacate any misses. Only the referring agency is permitted to do that per the California Penal Code. So there's a lot of accountability in the court system for their participation. And as I said earlier, the clients all take quarterly progress reports back to the court or their probation officer or parole agent, identifying whether or not they are progressing in the program. And if a client goes back to the court with a negative progress report, there may be additional consequences. On the rare occasions when we've had to send somebody back with a negative progress report, sometimes the judges will issue additional community service. Sometimes the judges will admonish them in open court and tell them that they need to start participating in the program appropriately. Sometimes the men and women have custody time that is part of their original sentence, so that if they violate their probation, they have to do maybe a week, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days in custody if they violate the judge's orders. Okay, I also talk about maybe the clinical part. So there's also a great deal of accountability within the group session itself. So as I was saying, because we have open enrollment and there are new clients, middle clients, and senior clients, or clients who have been in the program longer, there's a lot of accountability that occurs in the group process themselves. So for example, when a newer client is coming in and maybe is denying, blaming, or minimizing their behavior, some of the more senior group members are there to appropriately confront the behavior and help them see why they're doing those types of behaviors, and maybe ways to see it in a new light that maybe would be more productive for their relationships.
So do you think it helps having it be like a group versus like an individual one-on-one type of counseling?
Absolutely. The group process is critical to the Batter's Intervention Program, just for the reasons that I just stated, that some of the senior group members are there to not only be supportive peers, but also to help guide them themselves. And sometimes with clients, the guidance that they receive from their peers is just as important as the guidance that they receive from the therapist or the facilitator.
Yeah, I think that's really cool that they have that kind of working into it.
Right.
You kind of told us when we were talking a few weeks ago kind of about, you're asking like, does there tend to be, when you're thinking stereotypes, you're thinking through like what an abuser would look like, what someone who has been abusive in a situation in the past has looked like can you kind of talk about like how there really isn't that stereotype?
Mm-hmm. Well, because we get a lot of referrals from a lot of different agencies, court, probation, parole, social services, the level of violence is extremely diverse. So we can get somebody in the program who's mandated rather than voluntary for something, for verbal acts of violence, maybe terrorist threats, abusive behavior verbally, as well as acts of physical violence, pushing, shoving, slapping, punching, stabbing, shooting. There's a huge range of abusive behaviors. Part of the education that we do in the very beginning of the program is to teach the men and women who come to us that domestic violence is not just physical violence. We review physical violence, verbal violence, sexual violence, economic violence, physical violence, verbal violence, emotional violence, sexual violence, and economic violence.
So do the people who come to see you tend to be, they're out on their luck, maybe they're, financially not doing well, or, are they tend to be less educated people? Is there kind of a trend?
The men and women who come to our programs are just as diverse as the types of violence that comes with them. We have men and women of all races, ethnicities, socioeconomic status. Domestic violence is not discriminatory. forgot the beginning part of your question.
That's basically what I was going for, was just trying to get you to talk about how,
Okay.
I remember one point you were saying, you know, you have doctors and lawyers and stuff like that, so
Right.
if you want to just kind of, I don't know, just talk about how it, you know, it could be, also we're trying to go for, it could be your neighbor next door, it could
Right.
be someone you're not expecting, like,
Right.
you kind of talk about, like, would I, walking down the street, be able to identify the people you're working with?
Right. So the men and women who come to the Batters Intervention Program are just as diverse as the violent behaviors that they commit. We have men and women of all walks of life. We have men and women of every race, every ethnicity, all socioeconomic statuses. We have men and women who are blue-collar workers. We have men and women who are physicians, attorneys, high-level executives. We have men and women who might be your next-door neighbor, who you may have known all your life and never suspected that there might have been a violent problem. Domestic violence is an issue that dramatically impacts all people in our culture. The main idea of what we're trying to provide is not only education about what domestic violence is, but to teach much needed skills that maybe people were not able to have access to. Maybe they were experiencing domestic violence in their own home growing up. Maybe the school system did not teach them how to have healthy relationships. Maybe their educational system did not teach them how to identify what their feelings are and to provide them with coping skills about how to help themselves deal with their feelings in a more healthy, effective way.
Kind of getting more personal into like your feelings about this kind of work. Like, has there ever been a time where you were just so frustrated? You were just like, why isn't this getting through to someone?
I think my experience with domestic violence might be, I don't want to say that. I've been doing domestic violence batters intervention programs for close to 20. Oh God! All right, let's start that.
You don't want to say that either.
I know. I'm
you don't
old.
look like you could be doing that for
Yeah.
20 years. It's a privilege.
Yeah, right. I've been doing domestic violence batters intervention program for close to 20 years now. I started in graduate school as one of my internships, and then stayed with the company after I graduated, and then bought the company in 2004. So that kind of, I guess, displays how much I really enjoy working with offenders of domestic violence. It's an incredibly rewarding experience to help people who did not have the opportunity to learn some of these skills. And when some of the men and women are in the group process and you see the light turn on in their eyes when they get it, that there are better ways to communicate, there are better ways to have relationships, there are better ways to interact and feel better about themselves, it's an amazing experience.
I bet it's really amazing. Does it ever, like, do you ever get to a point where it's hard though? Like, do you ever hear these stories and it's just like...
Well, part of what being a good therapist is learning and recognizing what our own countertransference issues. Working in the field of domestic violence, I always keep in the back of my mind that the person in front of me has had some type of violent behavior in their either recent or remote past. So there's always the capability of violence occurring in the room. But I tend to fall back on treating people with respect and dignity and letting the clients know, regardless of where they're at in the process of the beginning and maybe experiencing some defensiveness, that they are in a safe place where that they can talk about some of their feelings, where they can talk about some of the difficulties of what it's been like to interact with the legal system on such a private, personal issue. Treating clients with respect all the way through the process so that they know that they are in a room where they're not going to be judged, they're not going to be chastised, they're not going to be shamed, so that they can feel comfortable talking about some of the issues. In the 20 years that I've been doing this, I have never been attacked, I've never been assaulted, I've never been scared for my safety. Part of that process may also be due to my gender. Since being a male, I might have a very different experience working with offenders of domestic violence than a female therapist would. But again, you always fall back on, we're clinicians, we're therapists, we're counselors, we're social workers. Our job is to help the client. Our job is not to shame the client. Our job is not to judge the client. Our job is to help provide the client with much needed skills that they have not been given before. I'm not really sure what else to say about that.
No, it's good.
It's
I feel
great.
like that question, it was weirdly worded, but like I was just trying to get you to, you had like some great sound bites, kind of the respect and the
Right.
redeeming qualities and all that and stuff. I think that's probably all the questions I have, but I'm gonna open it up to either of you if they have questions.
Can I get some water? Real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Do either of you have questions you'd like to contribute? But we can like, just because it like looks better, like they might ask questions, but
I'd
like.
still look at you?
Yes, still
Okay.
answer to me.
Now, so in the documentary, will they be able to hear you?
No.
So it's like some of the documentaries that you sometimes see on DVD where the person who's being filmed, you're only hearing them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they won't get to hear the questions?
Yes, so, but you've been doing an amazing job of kind of repeating
Repeat, okay.
and like, that's
Yeah.
why I was saying the full sentences. Like
Okay.
normally you have to like tell people and be like, so I'm not gonna be in it, but you like have, that's what I meant by the full sentences earlier. You've been really
Right.
good at talking, so like when we edit it, it'll make sense.
Okay.
But yeah, so if I wanna open it up to Haley and Jack, do either of you have a question you wanna ask?
Yeah, I kind of just want to know about like the emotional toll like on you of just like kind of Megan was hinting at this, but just like how do you feel like on when the session just goes horribly?
Part of what the Batters Intervention Program facilitators do in order to not only protect ourselves but deal with our, oh goodness, there it goes again. Excuse me. Sorry.
You're totally smooth relative to everyone else. You're like top
You're
tier.
doing awesome.
Yeah,
like
believe
honestly.
me.
Thank you. All right, let me start again.
99 percentile.
Part of what Batters Intervention Program facilitators and therapists do in order to deal with our own countertransference issues and feelings regarding.
Can you explain countertransference?
Yes.
Projection?
Part of what we as part of what we do in Batters Intervention Program as therapists and counselors to keep ourselves from burning out or keep ourselves present in the, no, that was dumb. Let me start.
Take your time. So how does a man who's worked in this field for 20 years fortify himself to do this every day?
Part of what we do is as Battervin. I'm getting the giggles now. Get it
Well, it's
together.
hard because now we're talking
Yeah.
more about like your
Right.
emotions and less the clinical aspect.
Right.
It's
Sure.
hard.
Okay.
I'm asking you about your emotions and you know,
Right.
you for a living sit listen to other people talk about theirs.
Right.
Are you married?
No. Part of what we do as Batters Intervention Program counselors and therapists to keep ourselves from burning out and able to be more present in the room is to deal with our own countertransference issues, or the feelings that we have about dealing with some of our clients, is to seek out supervision. We have typical meetings where the counselors get together to talk about difficult cases, or maybe even to process a difficult group session, where maybe one of the clients had a particularly difficult issue, or maybe an extremely defensive or resistive response, so that we can process the issue in ourselves and then go back to the next session with maybe a renewed sense of where we're trying to head in the treatment of the clients or the interventions that we're providing. Frequent supervision is necessary, especially with non-licensed group facilitators, so that they can, like I said, process any of the feelings that they have coming up, prevent burnout, and be more effective clinically with some of the issues that are being brought up in the group sessions.
What have been some of the challenging issues for you to work with?
Well, as a human being, sometimes we have our own issues that come up during the week. Maybe we have a bad week. Maybe we had a car accident on the way to the group session. Maybe we have our own personal relationship issues that may come up. And part of what being a good therapist or a good counselor is to recognize when our own issues are coming to play in the group session, and to make sure that we're dealing with that in our own therapy or our supervision with our clinical directors or our supervisors or other colleagues that we may use in the field to kind of help us deal with our own issues.
It's kind of like a support system of helping each other.
A support system for ourselves is vital, not only in the Batters and Adventure program, but just being a therapist in general.
That's really cool.
Does that happen all within your company? You know what I mean? Or
At Wellmore, we have frequent communication between each other. Many of the group facilitators that I have working for me typically call me once a week, every other week, maybe twice a month, with maybe some difficult issues that they're experiencing, so that they can get supervision from me, or I may call some of my colleagues and get some support that way, so that I can be more present in the room and not bring my own issues into play with some of the group sessions.
I'm interested in you as a ground level man for 20 years must have some idea of societal factors that you think are contributing to this. Can you pinpoint any?
Do you mean where do some of the men and
Yeah.
women lack the coping skills?
Maybe. So it's it's not social economic. It's not racial. It's not anything like that. So what is it? Is it the way men and women relate to each other? We weren't educated. The familial dissonance.
Right.
Where do you think?
I think a lot of what contributes to men and women experiencing domestic violence in their adult relationships is not being provided the skills growing up, maybe experiencing child abuse themselves, or maybe experiencing domestic violence in their own parents' relationship, not having an education system that teaches people how to have healthy relationships, how to identify and deal with their feelings. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you could inject those skills when, where, how would you do it? If I gave you a grant right now to go
Right.
do it.
Ideally, I think that early intervention by teaching relationship skills, maybe in junior high, high school, to kids that are starting to have their first relationships, how to have healthy relationships, how to have effective communication skills, how to identify what they're feeling, teaching them coping skills with how to identify anger, jealousy, sadness, grief, loss, all types of emotions, how to deal with them more effectively.
Do you think people often have unhealthy relationships, but it just never gets to this point, so it doesn't get addressed?
Well, I think that the men and women who are capable of having healthy relationships, somewhere along the line, learned the tools that they needed, and maybe their parents, without knowing, taught them how to have a healthy relationship just by being effective communicators themselves, or maybe learning with some very positive role models growing up themselves how to handle their feelings. There are a lot of healthy relationships going on. Not everyone is going to be a victim or an offender of domestic violence.
I think I heard from someone, they were talking about something and said and I kind of do you think these people wonder if they could ever have a healthy relationship?
A great deal of the men and women who come into the Batters Intervention program are often curious about if it's possible to salvage the relationship that they were engaging in the domestic violence in when they got referred to the program. Some of the men and women are not permitted, due to restraining order issues, to have communication for an extended period of time, so they might not be able to practice the skills that we're talking about in their primary relationship. A good deal of the men and women who come are still in the relationship and want to save the relationship. And part of what we do is not only teach the men and women who are in our groups the skills, but encourage them to share the skills with the non-offending relationship or their partner, so that not only is the person who's in front of us learning the skills, but they can take it home and teach the other partner how to use the same skills that they're learning in the group.
So, kind of going back to societal factors and what you would teach early, early emotional skills. So part of that is normalizing conflict, right? So are there places in our society that you feel, there's a little bit of what's keeping you from it? It's taboo, right? Or it's
what's keeping you from learning about conflict?
Why isn't this in our education system already?
Oh wow. I don't know that I would know.
You don't know?
No.
I think
I would encourage anyone who wants these skills to be taught in their schools to go to their school board or to go to the local PTA meetings and address, especially if you have a school-age child that is in elementary, junior high, and high school, and maybe learning or engaging in their first romantic relationships, to go to the school board meetings and talk about, these are the skills that I want my kid to learn in school, and maybe make some effective social change that way by asking the school boards to start incorporating relationship skills, emotional regulation skills in the curriculums that we provide our kids now.
Do you think
Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a stigma about talking about emotions and stuff like that also keeps us from getting that information out there?
Well, in the school system, I don't know that teachers are taught psychological tools. Obviously, I'm not a teacher, so I can't really speak to what they're taught. I don't want to be offensive to teachers and what they can and cannot do. But my guess is that they're not therapists, and they're not taught with how to identify and how to develop healthy coping skills to deal with feelings in school. And I would imagine that the curriculums are pretty thorough and intense already, and maybe adding a new entire area to a curriculum, I'm not sure what kind of stress or problems that might bring.
Cool. Have you ever thought about doing any early education?
Well, so I don't know if you want this in here or not, but when I first started doing the program, I got together with a couple of other batters intervention programs, and we attempted to go to various school districts in the area, but we were met with extreme resistance, and they were not interested. So I don't know if you want to.
Why do you think that was, that they weren't interested?
Back then, and this was probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, and maybe the issue of domestic violence was
not in my backyard.
Yeah, maybe it's easier to think that this is not happening in our school systems, in our city, in our county, and
my daughter's not doing that.
Exactly, where it's easier to think that the issue of domestic violence is happening far away, and that it's not going to impact our communities or our neighborhoods or our families. Yeah. It's easier to push it away.
Yeah, we had our experience with Laura's House and their advocacy. It's all about relationships and how they can escalate, and also where they start and where they might not need to start or something like that. And so, no, they were not. Even though it was relatively progressive for even having a domestic violence thing there, they weren't willing to acknowledge that was part of the beginnings of intimate relationships. So what is that? And I don't know that children even define them the same these days, and nobody wants to go there.
It's a very scary issue.
Sure. Do you think these issues and things will arise more with how we're going into online and dating stuff on apps and stuff like that? Do you think that changes anything?
Well, my hope is with more access to communication, social media, the internet, maybe more news sites, news agencies, news venues, that the idea of domestic violence or early relationship conflict problems is going to get more attention, and the more that people are aware the issues can exist, maybe the more willingness that they would have to going and get help before it becomes an issue that the legal system has to interact with. Maybe the more that people are aware of domestic violence, the less stigma will be attached to, oh, I don't want to be one of those people who kills my partner or who maims my partner. I can be a normal person and have unhealthy conflict and go and get help for that conflict and learn new skills and how to save my relationship before it gets to the point of one of us abusing the other.
Where should they go for that?
I would encourage anyone who is concerned that they have an issue with domestic violence to go online and look for therapists, counselors, agencies who deal with the issue of domestic violence, either victims or offenders, and seek referrals. Contact your insurance companies. Maybe they have therapists on their network lists. If you don't have insurance, call social agencies who are involved with helping people, men and women who are experiencing domestic violence issues in your relationship. Go online, look up batterers intervention programs, and call us and find out what kind of options are available for you to come voluntarily before it becomes a legal issue.
That's great, Ryu. Good. Do you have anything you want to add or something we didn't maybe ask about you want to talk about?
Well, one of the things I had talked about, I think, with Ben on the phone is that my hope, and of course I don't know if you guys are open to doing this, but at least putting our company's name and phone number, so that way we could be one of the places that they call.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love for people to come voluntarily. We have a great many of the clients who complete the program successfully and then stay voluntarily afterwards to continue getting help. Some of the clients come maybe once a month, once every other month, to just get booster shots or refresh some of the knowledge that they gained in the program. We always encourage any of our clients who are willing and able to call frequently, come back whenever they need more skills or just a refresher of some of the skills that they learned in the program.
Awesome. Thank you, David. I think that's it. Thank you. That was great.
Thanks. It's freezing in here.
It is cold in here.
Yo, before you cut, let's just do like a clap.
Okay, ready? You clap.
Oh, like a...
Yeah.
Now I get to be in the union.
Yeah.